Welcome to today's update video. Here in the Eastern Pacific, we still have recently designated Invest 91E. Actually, not recently designated, but I mentioned this in the previous video. However, the NHC's greatest tropical weather outlook of Invest 91E is up the chance to 70% chance in 2 days and an 80% chance of development within the next 5 days. And the system appears to be becoming better organized somewhat, even though it's coming to a stall a little bit. I'll get into why later. You can still see some code behind features, or at least will becoming evident, surrounded by a decent but somewhat cool ball of deep convection. You can see it well on here on the water vapor, even though it's starting to fade a little bit. And the reason it appears to be fading is that this mid-level shear. You can see it's hard to see, but here's the system right here. Here's where Invest 91E is. It's running through about 15 to 20 knots, 10 to 15 knots of mid-level shear, and that's kind of far from ideal. And this system could disrupt the storm for the next 10 to. And while the worst of this shear is south of the system, southeasterly shear. The southeasterly middle shear. I mean, the worst of it's to the south of the system, but can still have some effect over the next few days. However, I would like to point out that I don't think this shit, in the long run, the shear will be entirely problematic from development, because right now the ship's output is still diagnosing about 12 knots of shear, and kind of has the shear decreasing, and as a result, the ships and LGM, GEM, intensity models bring the system to hurricane status by the end of the 5-day forecast period. So it's still something to keep an eye on. Something that's definitely to keep an eye on. The system could still get reach this sort of intensity despite the mid-level shear, which is forecasted to, if the JFS base shear output is correct, relax. And as a result, I don't see any reason for the agency to lower the developmental probabilities. The global models remain relatively bullish with this, even though some runs have been more bullish than others. The GFS continues to show development and eventually make this a formidable tropical cyclone, while also showing another system in the Atlantic here. And eventually, the GFS is also eventually trying to hand the Gulf of Tonkin, the PEC system, but hasn't really had a lot of consistency with that. But also keep an eye on that regardless. Europeans pretty similar. Though the Europeans never had the Gulf of Tonkin PEC system, the system still makes future Agatha a tropical storm. Actually, this one has it weak, but some of the other ones have had a system on the European have had a system close to hurricane strength. And as we said, however, I think this system will take its sweet time just because of the fiscal nature. Not the fiscal, but the extreme nature of these kind of systems that I mentioned in my previous video. That systems like 91E tend to have a lot of peaks and valleys, and you kind of go into a little bit of a valley now with the mid-level shear. But I do think eventually the shear is going to likely to eventually abate, and conditions will likely become more favorable for development down the line. As a result, I still think the system has a chance to become a hurricane, possibly a major hurricane, but I wouldn't peg it as overly likely at this time. Anyhow, that's it for today. I know this video wasn't too much content-wise, just kind of reinforcing the main points, but that's it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye.